Hi, I'm Elia Einhorn, host and producer of the Talkhouse Music Podcast. Welcome to today's talk live from the amazing flagship SONOS store here at 101 Green Street in semi-sunny Soho, New York City. The Talkhouse Music Podcast features intelligent, notable artists in long-form, unmoderated conversation, and we release a new episode each week. Subscribe on Stitcher or iTunes. Here at the SONOS store, they've set up 7 amazing soundproof listening rooms where you can play whatever you want while you check out rad speakers. We've taken over the downstairs vinyl listening room for today's talk. Also in the store is a Rick Rubin mural, a rare zine wall, and Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth's cassette collection. We knew that Thurston hearts The Who. Turns out he also hearts some pretty obscure shit. If you'd like to download this talk in audio form, it'll be released Thursday, October 13th. Post your questions for Meredith and Kathleen on Facebook or tweet at Talkhouse. Check out thetalkhouse.com for recent episodes including talks between Parquet Courts and Proto-Martyr, the Wu-Tang Clan's RZA and Interpol's Paul Banks, aka Banks and Steels, and our doubleheader recorded backstage at Pitchfork Music Festival featuring Carly Rae Jepsen with Brian Wilson and Thundercat with Kamasi Washington. To introduce today's guests, I'd like to welcome the Talkhouse Music Editor-in-Chief, Brenna Ehrlich.
I'm pretty excited to introduce them. They're both punk icons in their own rights, Meredith Graves and Kathleen Hanna. In addition to being a former contributor to the Talkhouse, Meredith is also the frontwoman of the band Perfect Pussy and the founder of her very own Honor Press label. And currently she's an anchor for MTV News, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. In the past, she's written for The Village Voice, Pitchfork, Rookie, and a number of other publications. And just the other week, Meredith teamed up with Brooklyn acts Yvette, who also write for the Talkhouse, and House of Feelings to release the track Avatar. So, which I believe was one of the first times you've sung on a track rather than yelled.
Yeah, at least
in a punk way.
Recently.
Yeah.
It's the first one in a couple of years.
So I'm excited to hear what else you have up your sleeve. And to my right is Kathleen Hanna, who is basically a legend in the I know it's always awkward to say that next to you, but in the realm of punk rock and riot grrrl and feminism and beyond. She performed and fronted acts like Bikini Kill and the Tigre, and she's currently helms the Julie Ruin, who released their new album Hit Reset just this past summer. You guys should pick it up. So I'm just gonna stop talking and let you guys talk now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Brenna. You are the coolest. I like you very much. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Meredith.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you. I was nervous on the internet. It was like, let's get ready to rumble. And I was like, oh my God, is this going to be like some sort of like...
You're like a Beastie Boy. Getting ready to rumble is like let's just go do
I'm more than a
some
Beastie
cool
Boy girl.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. Wow. I'm off to a rolling start. How are you?
I'm good. I just it was raining outside and I ran here. No sun outside, contrary to certain people's reports. Mm-hmm. Very cloudy. And I ended up just kind of running here because there were no cabs. So I'm a little bit out of breath. But other than that, I'm doing really great. Thanks for asking.
Well, thanks to SONOS for having us here in the store today. And as always, thanks to the Talkhouse for letting me come on and talk to some of my heroes. They've been kind enough so far to let me talk to also Janet Weiss from Slater-Kinney. They've let me talk to Rose McGowan, and now I'm talking to you, which I think means I've pulled a hat trick of my feminist heroes. 14-year-old Meredith is screaming somewhere deep in the recesses of my artificially intelligent hard drive. Debbie Harry on Rapture changed my life as a kid. The next time I heard a woman rap that really affected me was the first Julie Ruin tape. What was it?
Did I rap on that?
Yeah.
I thought I was just talking, but...
Oh, it was perfect. And I wanted to know, what was it that made you want to rap or speak, sing, or do that? What, because we have this new Julie Ruin record. What prompted the first one?
I was super depressed. I was being stalked by a guy who worked at a place across the street called Hard Bodies. If you're listening, you're a douchebag and I can't stand you. I hope really bad things happen to you. He had basically beaten up his wife a bunch of times and got caught. So then he moved into the place that he worked. And it was really funny because Phyllis from, I think she was in Tourette's, Oakland band that was amazing, girl band. We used to call Hard Bodies and prank call them and be like, she would call him pretend she was a boy and be like, I'm really nervous about what I should wear. Should I wear a tank top? I have really small arms. People make fun of me. And the guy, and this was before this dude was stalking me, and he'd be like, well, just come over, kid, and, we'll show you around. And then she'd be like, will you be my dad?
And see, based on your description and you not having said what Hard Bodies is, I can't decide if it's a boxing gym or a gay bar. Okay,
no, it's a boxing gym.
Okay,
You're right.
I have small arms.
No, but this was Olympia, so it was like I knew it was it was a gym, and so that was part of actually the weird untold narrative, especially of that one song. I Want to Know What Love Is, was because I was being stalked by this guy, and like people at the coffee shop who I didn't even know had told me that they're like, you should watch out for that guy who works at Hard Bodies because he is sleeping in there now and he has domestic violence charges against him and he's fixating on you because he keeps coming into the coffee shop and getting coffee and being like, is that girl a prostitute? Why doesn't she go to work? I think she's a hooker. I think she's doing bad things. Like he would like climb on the roof and like look into my apartment with binoculars. So
how many girls stay awake all night?
Right.
It was right across the street from your house.
No, exactly. And my landlord wouldn't install a proper door. The front doors of our building were broken. So like I had to take my headphones off like every 45 seconds because my back was towards the door. It was the only place I could put my 8-track Tascam reel to reel, 1/4-inch tape.
Heck yes.
It's the only place I could put it that I could fit it in my apartment. So I was constantly taking my headphones off and turning around to see if like he was coming in my door. So literally like when I hear that record, like I remember that feeling. And I did record during the day, and I did have a friend, Paul Schuster, who worked with it with me and helped me with some technical things. And so those times were really a lot funner than literally getting up at 3 a.m. because I was just freaking out. And then that's when I wrote that. I just sort of off the cuff was like so frustrated with having to be scared. I was like, I'll just stay up all night and work on this record.
I think...
Is that super depressing?
No, no. I had
it's
a,
real.
No, I had a stalker.
How many women haven't had stalkers? And
right.
I wasn't even in the public eye. Like it wasn't about that. It wasn't about me being in a band or anything. Mm-hmm. I was just some, punk rocker who like looked like I didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm. And that was actually like where
which I kind of was.
It's exactly where I was going to go with that. Is that when we talk about sexism and women in music, the endless conversation that you and I and everyone we've ever met gets asked about incessantly, instead of like usually the actual music we're working on, is that even at a level where you are, in giant air quotes, especially as it pertains to you, just a punk rocker, there are things that happen on every level. And when you're in local bands or you're recognizable at all as like a punk woman or like a visible woman in the world at all, it's not just airbrushing on magazine covers. It's the guy that lives across the street. And that's why that song, I think, still has such an impact. Do you think that a lot of those themes carried over onto this record, or what were the inspirations for the new Julie Rowan record?
No, it was a whole different brand of depression on this one.
I'm sorry I'm laughing. I just get it so hard.
No, I mean, I write to get myself out of like, if I feel like I'm in a hole and I can't get out and I'm like clawing my way out. And that's what the record is, like always. Like, it's my way to express myself, to get through stuff, all that kind of stuff. And, like not only was I being stalked by the dude at Hard Bodies, but I was also... in Bikini Kill and was about to leave because like the situation was just not working out. And my identity as the girl from Bikini Kill was actually really important to me. And I'd kind of like let a lot of my outside relationships go. Like my band was everything. Since then I've learned it's healthier as an artist to have like a separate, I hate it when musicians call themselves artists, but whatever. As a musician, as someone in a band, it's not healthy, I don't think, at least for me, to like put all my eggs in one basket and be like, this band is every single thing in the world to me. And like, if I had a relationship that arguing and fighting or whatever took more than 2 days, and I actually learned this from a Madonna quote, I was like, it's over. Because my music and what we were doing, what our mission was more important to me than like any relationship. And so when we started to unravel, I didn't know who I was. And it was like divorcing 3 people, and that record was really figuring out who I was separate from that band and separate from that identity. And also kind of releasing my frustrations of the stereotypes that get put on you as a feminist artist. And like nobody asks you about your music. They only ask you about being a woman.
Tell me about the worst time you've ever been sexually harassed on stage. I'd love to hear all about it.
Well, what's funny is that, so the second one, I got really bad Lyme disease. Long story. It took a really long time. I was in bed for a long time. And it totally super sucked. It was like the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
And that features heavily in the documentary, The Punks, a few years ago. Yeah. Very inspirational, by the way, as someone who also suffers from chronic illness. Like, that's amazing. But you were saying.
I was like, okay, who am I separate from the illness? You know, and it was like the same kind of trajectory of like, I forgot who I am because all I've been doing is going from doctor to doctor and, you know, trying to separate myself from that and be like, who am I now? And I mean, obviously identity is fluid and you change all the time. So it wasn't like I was trying to pinpoint like, this is who I am forever and ever and ever.
This is me now.
Yeah, it was sort of like, you know, also a way to, you know, work through some of the stuff that happened to me and both the traumas of childhood and the traumas of illness, because one can really spark the other. You know, like you feel like you grow up in a house that is unsafe and then all of a sudden you're in a body that's unsafe and you have no control over either situation. So,
and under all the bans and all the interviews and all the this, that, and the other thing, the sick body can really become who you are mentally and emotionally. And you worry so compulsively that under the Bikini Kills and the interviews and the whatevers of the world, like I am a broken body and I'm a woman. Man,
which means people are like, you're actually just lying because you don't want to go to my party.
Yeah. Or I have a good friend. Yeah.
I'm like, actually, I don't want to go to any of your parties anymore now that you're mad at me because I'm sick.
I was going to say, I think there's a song about that exact thing by a band called Tigre that I've known all the words to since I was 13 years old.
Wait, what is it?
I'm thinking of the exactly, hey, look, I'm really sorry. I couldn't get to your party. Do I know your song lyrics better than you do? Because I'm going to leave. I feel like a freak
no, Joe.
I was in a band in my early 20s that covered Le Tigre, and I'm from a very small town, and we could only play it at about 3 shows before we realized that there were a few people that thought it was one of our songs because of how clumsily we played it, and so we stopped playing it.
But that's great. I mean, that's how you like, you know, write other songs that are, I mean, that's how the Julie Ruin ended up being the Julie Ruin was because Le Tigre couldn't play the Julie Ruin songs.
Yeah.
And we started trying, and then they just ended up sounding like something totally different. And then that was the first Le Tigre record.
So to go back to what you were saying a minute ago, and I did want to ask about Le Tigre too, you were saying the Madonna rule of 2 days of arguing, which I love and will employ wildly at my own discretion from this point forward.
I don't do that anymore. I mean, I've been married 20 years now, so.
Well,
I've actually been married 10 years, but I've been with the same person for 20 years, so I stopped that rule.
Well, there's that, and there's also your decades-long relationship with Le Tigre and the Julie Ruin.
Yeah.
So how have those relationships strengthened over the years? How have you kept those relationships? What's it been like to have so many years to grow and develop with either your partner, romantically or musically, or your friends? How do you make love stay?
I don't know. I just met the most handsome boy in the world, and who's super talented, and it's really funny because people are like, isn't it weird to be with a musician? Like, is there competition? Is there this? Is there that? Will you ever collaborate? Blah, 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 blah. And it's almost like we have 2 totally separate things. Like, I don't play my music for him. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, we just don't even engage with that thing. Like, we'll both sort of vent to each other about things that have to do with, you know, but waiting for a long time in a sound check, which is a totally stupid problem that a ton of people would love to have. So I wouldn't really want to go to vent to one of my friends who's working 9 to 5.
That's what boyfriends are for.
So I we vent about stuff like that, but typically we keep things really separate. And he's a very different kind of musician than I am. Like, he's what I put in the Joan Jett category of born to rock. He just has to make music all the time. It's not a question. And I feel like I was born to make art, but in a lot of different mediums. And I don't feel like I'm I have to make music all the time or I'll lose my mind. There's certain points in my life where I have to write songs. And then there's certain times where I've needed to be doing drawings at home and, doing writing pieces for book form or whatever.
And helping out with all the really crazy stuff that, back in the day, all of the booking shows and the visual arts and the college-oriented stuff and KRS, of course, and all of that whole diaspora scene that you were involved in the early 90s. What are the last vestiges of that you still hold on to? Who are you still connected with from that time? Do you still make art with any of those people?
Actually, Le Tigre just got back together in the studio. You have the scoop.
Oh, yeah?
For a special song that we are going to release, hopefully early to mid-October.
I'm wondering if this is thematic. based on the time in which it will be released?
I will not say
Okay.
what is about, but it's been really fun working with them again. And
It's a Halloween song. I know you guys
song.
don't. It's definitely, Kathleen's covering the Monster Mash.
Oh my God. I've already covered the Monster Mash.
Really?
No, it's just like, I love that guitar line's so good. And like in this song we did on the last record called Oh Come On, I was like, I love the Monster Mash part. Like the lead is like totally like an updated Monster Mash. I'm like, this is so awesome. Cause that's my whole kind of thing is like Monster Mash.
I love that. And I feel like, to go back to like, because I'm 2 years into a relationship with someone who's also a musician who I love dearly, but we can barely work on music together, even though we try consistently. We love it. But you coming from punk and hardcore, your partner coming from punk and hardcore, that Monster Mash thing, I really feel like that's something that comes from punk, because our reference points don't have to be like, I'd like to sound like Adele. I'd like to sound like Gloria Gaynor. It's like, I want to sound like a dump truck that's underwater in a garbage can. I want to sound like the Monster Mash.
I actually do want to sound like Adele or Gloria Gaynor.
Right.
But maybe that's the difference we found between us. But I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
I don't want this to well, whatever.
I come in here and I do these interviews.
Are we
and
allowed
just
to
ask
curse?
questions.
Okay. I just want to fucking say it.
Okay.
I think you have an amazing voice. I don't think that what you do is screaming.
Right.
And nothing against the intro, but it's like, I can tell that you're a really good singer.
Thank you.
And the thing that frustrated me is that I heard or I read in an interview that you were talking about, people were like, oh, we want the vocals louder. Mm-hmm. And you were like, well, I'm equal with the members of my band. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling that way at first too. So I totally was like, whoa, flashback. Like I remember, having kind of these, also I had all these political ideals that was like, don't use reverb because it's like airbrushing your voice, like that kind of stuff. I wanted people to hear like what a regular woman sounded like in all of my whiny Valley Girl glory, and what I sounded like when I was pissed as a real woman with no reverb on my voice. Eventually I realized there's a place for reverb in my work, and there's a place for like all these things are tools that if I use them in the correct way, work for me. But I was so disappointed because I couldn't hear your vocals and I could tell they were really good. And so I watched a bunch of live performances and I was like, man, that girl can fucking sing. And I was just like, I almost wanted to find you on Twitter and be like, turn up your... And I knew everybody was doing that to you, and I know that it's your aesthetic choice, but I was just really sad because I just wanted you to know that like people want to hear what you have to say. And it's not, I don't believe that it's standing out from the band to make it so that you can be heard, because it's really important to hear the vocals and to hear, I couldn't understand what you were saying. And it was like, but anyways,
it's very complicated. I'm
sure
thinking, I'm like,
is.
there's so many answers for this. And every asshat on Twitter wanted to tweet at me and say, I can never hear your voice. Your voice sounds bad. Your voice sounds bad.
That's why I didn't do it.
If you had done it,
That's
I would
why
have
I
been
didn't
like,
do it.
yes, mom, cried, remastered the album and had it repressed to your liking. Is
No,
what I would
seriously,
have done.
I didn't want to, I saw that stuff and I didn't want to be like the douchebag who was like telling you what to do. I was like, if that's how she wants to run her business, that's how she wants to run her business. But at the same time, I was like, I want to hear her. I want to hear what she has to say. I want to, you know what I mean? And
there's a few reasons why it ended up that way. And none of them will probably be emotionally satisfying, but they are all true. One is that when we started Perfect Pussy, I was, as you mentioned, using your various musical projects as a way to process depression, work through like past trauma. Perfect Pussy was started in an attempt to directly confront and offend people in my hometown who had been emotionally, socially, and otherwise like abusive to me after I had for years like been a very active participant in our scene after a breakup. It was the very prototypical situation of, oh no, that's my bro. He's a good dude. It doesn't matter if he did anything to women. It's that's our guy. He books shows. He does this, that, and the other thing. And I ran into some massive social trouble after running a venue and being in bands and booking shows for years. I took a couple of years off music. I didn't want to be heard. I didn't want to be seen. And I was living in the house above the space I used to help run. So when we started Perfect Pussy, the reason the vocals were low and the reason the vocals were so distorted was because, one, I wanted to scream as loud as I could in people's faces and not necessarily have them understand me because I didn't feel like they understood me in the other way as it was. And the other reason is because coming of age in upstate New York, the influence of Earth Crisis and Earth Crisis light bands was omnipresent. And I had your tapes. I had Patti Smith's tapes. I had Huggy Bear. But those were tapes, and they came out when I was 4. And in Syracuse, I had Carl Buchner from Earth Crisis. Like, yeah, when I had a dad who was a punk. Like, I knew your music before I was sentient. But in Syracuse, I had men and men and men and men and men and men and men. So I studied because I was never allowed to be in bands. And by the time that I was 25 and we started Perfect Pussy, the masculinity, the disband nature of layering reverb and distortion on vocals, the performative nature of abusing myself on stage, of being tough, of doing attempting to scream, because I'm trying to, and it physically feels like screaming to the point where I have vocal notes now. I can't scream like that anymore. It came from this place of you let me stockpile the end result of your socially mandated masculine immaturity for 25 fucking years. Here it is all at once. You couldn't understand me emotionally. You don't get to hear me either. This is my project for me, and it's all about fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
Right.
And you don't even get to enjoy it. And the first run of tapes, we didn't even put a lyric sheet because they were all about fuck this person, this person, this person. Yeah, fuck it. So, yeah, but I grew up doing musical theater, and I sang opera in high school, and I used to sing.
Yeah,
in
I mean, I
bands,
can tell you have a fantastic voice, and that was just
thanks.
it's funny because I think we have a similar trajectory, both in terms of the relationship gone wrong and it's splitting people in my small town, and there was some of that business going on, but also that's why if anybody saw me chuckling during that part, I was like, oh my God, it's we've been leading parallel lives, but 20 years, 30 years apart or something.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. But
both bands I've been in, I've used the music I've written to work through traumatic situations
Yeah.
I was in at the time when I wrote them.
Well, and what's so awesome is that, when we first started, it was this isn't art, this is therapy. And I was like, yeah, so what? I was like, I can't afford therapy. And so you have to listen to my therapy. But it also was really directed towards other women and towards trying to get women interested in feminism. But I realized that there came a time where I just started being just totally, I was in my feminist 101, I hate all men except for my boyfriend phase. And I was just
Can you validate quickly that I'll ever grow out of that?
Will I ever grow out of it? I think it's a spiral, Meredith. I think it's something you have to come back to sometimes.
The great toilet of masculinity.
It's great.
Swirling ever onward.
But I changed over with Le Tigre that I didn't want to scream. I always thought I was singing, but whatever. I didn't. I had started to direct my stuff towards men who had wronged me or just in general, using making personal narratives out of larger issues of sexism and using that and then singing that in front of women so maybe they could vicariously enjoy what I was doing. But I started realizing I don't even want to explain this anymore. I want to sing to my community. I'm so happy that now there's a community of women that I can turn to and who will come to the shows that I play. And so Le Tigre just started writing really kind of happy songs about politics and about things that we were thinking about and putting on a show. And I think there's just so many ways that you can battle sexism. And it's also by, changing genres, by being hey, guess what? It's still punk if you're in a band that's basically feminist in sync. You can't tell me that punk has to be a certain kind of arrangement or something like that.
And I
admire you.
I have too about the way you look too. You're not punk because of the way you dress. You're not punk because of the way you look. You're not punk because you
What, this isn't punk?
And yeah, when you're on stage, especially I have some of the early Bikini Kill footage. If you have a dress on, or if you're just wearing a bra, or
right.
any of that, now you get absolutely lampooned. And
yeah.
you're not punk because you're wearing a dress. Sometimes it's a lot. It's so much, and that was such a heavy the visual stuff has always been factored very heavily into what you've done. And just a few minutes ago, even after saying I hate when musicians refer to themselves as artists, you said, well, I'm an artist and sometimes I have to make music.
Well,
and
I
sometimes
designed
have to
this
make songs."
album cover.
How was that made? Did you draw and illustrate that, or is that a collage? Or?
No, that's actually a real like house that I have. And it's one of those toys that is like, it's a wooden house inside of a wooden house, inside of a wooden house, inside of a wooden house, inside a wooden house, inside one other wooden house.
Oh my God.
And I just thought it was really beautiful. And my friend Becca Albee actually shot it for me so it could be high res. And she does a lot of work that's like really stark. And it's almost like about evidence more than portraiture. And so she really inspired me. And then I just made a collage on the back because I've been making collages.
I feel like I want to know where you feel you fall in the long trajectory of feminist visual art. Only because someone asked me the same question the other day, and I was like, Jenny Holzer, Barbara Kruger.
Yeah.
And like that was pretty much just like all I had.
Yeah. Well, I actually just was at this panel discussion that Johanna from Le Tigre was a moderator for about this woman.
Shout, Johanna. You are very great.
Yeah, you are great. And it was about the artist Ellen Cantor, who has a bunch of shows up right now posthumously. And on October 5th, they're showing her show, her feature-length film that was finished by her friends after her death, which I just think is really amazing. Like, she drew out everything that she wanted to happen, and then her friends came together. Johanna's doing the soundtrack. And it's showing, I think, at MoMA, and it's called Pinochet Porn, and it's about fascism and the relationship of fascism to personal relationships. And
Pinochet, like the dictator.
Yeah. And a lot of her thing is about, where does the political and the personal meet? And, there's been a big thing of like, oh, well, when women retreated into personal as political, it's like, well, I'm just going to work on myself and then not be a citizen of the world and not be out there.
The world's fucking terrifying.
Changing. It's terrifying,
the world
but
hates women.
It's terrifying, but it's
it.
like, it's not, like, I never thought gay marriage would happen in my lifetime,
right.
And a lot of people can have issues with it. If you don't want to get married, don't get married, like, period. I got married for health insurance. So thank God I got Lyme disease after I got married.
I doubt you put that on the registry. But
no. But I don't even remember what your question is. Not because I don't care, but because
I don't remember what my question was.
I just started talking about this amazing panel discussion, and then I like lost it.
Art. We were talking about art, and I want to know what artists you like right now. What music are you listening to right now? What books are you reading? I'm asking because I'm going to make mental notes and read and listen to all of them.
Well, I love Rontes Purnell of the Younger Lovers.
Yeah,
and I love.
My friend Rich is in Younger Lovers.
He's on tour right now. They're on tour right now in Europe, and I've been getting reports, really hilarious reports back. But he wrote a book called Johnny, Would You Love Me If My Dick Was Bigger? And it's just one of the best things ever. I wrote a review in Art Forum of it just because I was like, I went to the reading at the Bureau for Social Experimentation. It's like at the LGBT Center in my neighborhood. And it was so good. It was one of those things. I'd actually been to 3 book readings in that week. And I was like, this was the most, like, only 40 people were there, but they were crammed into this small, beautifully curated bookstore. And I was like, it was life-changing. It was like seeing a punk show. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that's part of the through line of what we're talking about is that it doesn't have to be a punk show to be a punk show.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's like there's so many different ways. Like, I see people fighting back every day in their lives that are challenging to the status quo that doesn't involve, like, playing an instrument and, like,
or having a dog on a rope. Or
a dog on a rope?
A dog on a rope, or like a dread mullet or anything. Like, you don't have to be a crust lord to be punk. I think every time you feed people that you love, it's very punk. I think a lot about food when I think about what is punk. I think about all the things in the world that are really expensive and how to give them to people for free. And that's punk for the most part.
Yeah.
And that was also something that really got me hooked on you guys and the tangential acts surrounding you when I was first starting to listen to your music was zines, zine culture, up to Cindy Crab and Doris, Xeroxed flyers, cheap art, makeup, thrift store clothes. Do you still feel part and parcel to that? Do you still try? Are you still making like a photograph of, for instance, an object you already own? Like, do you still feel like divesting yourself from capitalism is like intrinsic to the music and the art that you make? Are you still doing everything on the cheap?
No. I mean, if I can get the money to like if I have an album that I want to make that is going to cost X amount of dollars, I will do whatever I have to do to get that money. I'm not going to go into whatever those evers might be, mm-hmm. but I will, basically like roll in shit in order to get the money to make the project that I want to make. I definitely wouldn't hurt anybody or step over everybody or use someone's labor for free or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I really believe that part of changing capitalism is engaging with it. Like, I don't think we can do this either or thing that we did in the 90s with like, well, if you're on an indie label, it's cool and, whatever. And then if you're on a major label, you are totally terrible. And that's just a false binary. And it's just like they each start reinforcing each other. And I feel like it's really important I've been ripped off by indie labels. Mm-hmm. And after being ripped off by an indie label really bad, I was just like, we should try a major label. Mm-hmm. Like, and we also got kind of not ripped off, but it just didn't really work out and it wasn't our bag. And so we decided to start our own label. Bikini Kill has its own label. Tigre has its own label. The Julie Ruins on Hardly Art now, which is an independent label. But it's like...
Shouts Hardly Art.
Yeah, shout out to Hardly Art.
Nice
Jason
to me on
Sarah.
Twitter. Thanks for being friends.
But like... in terms of capitalism, it's not like I'm like rah capitalism. It totally works. Obviously, it doesn't. And there's poverty everywhere and, it's awful. But it's like we need to start businesses that challenge like traditional business practices. Because how are we going to change things if we just walk around and say capitalism sucks? There's no way to live entirely outside of it unless you're going to go have your off-the-grid home and make beeswax candles that you trade for things.
Even then, you still have to buy the bucket for your freaky hippie gray water toilet.
Right, and
thing.
even then, you have to like own a piece of land. Even then, you have to like. There's all these things we can't escape it. This is the society we live in. So let's engage with it. Like, let's start businesses where we treat employees fairly. Let's have employees say, "I want profit sharing." Let's have paid family leave, all of these kinds of things. And it's like, I know people who own small businesses who like don't have to give health insurance, but they do, even though they don't have more than 12 employees, but they do because they know it's the right thing to do, and they treat people like equals and peers. And there's still a hierarchy in order to get things done, but everybody knows it's false. Everybody knows that, you know what I mean? Like hierarchies are actually really good for running a meeting. I have to say, I've been in a lot of meetings where there was nobody who was moderating and it just went to shit. And I think we can be like, okay, hierarchy totally sucks in the large scheme of things where there's like a dictator, like say Donald Trump or somebody like that. But like in terms of running a meeting or running a small business or something, it's okay to be like, for this set of time at this meeting, this person is going to be the person who's heading the meeting.
Yeah, it's less hierarchy and more stratification of tasks.
Yeah.
It feels good to identify each individual's specific skill. It's almost like saying, you will play bass in this band and you will sing in this band. And because we can't do the other thing, we just won't switch instruments at any point. Like, yeah, it's just using everyone to their strengths.
Exactly.
But that involves a certain level of intimacy that I don't think capitalism is complicit with. I don't think capitalism and intimacy can comfortably coexist.
No, but I think that within capitalism, we can have pockets of trying different ideas of like what would work, what do we want a business to look like? What do we want society to look like? And as we try these things out and fail and then try something else, then hopefully we'll learn like, what do we actually want and how are we going to achieve it? But if we just go, capitalism is the ultimate evil and I'm not going to interface with it in any way, A, it's not possible. And B, it just keeps us spinning our wheels, and it's like, you can take 100 pictures of yourself flipping off the man, but in reality, it's like, you've got to engage with culture in
You're
order
posting
to change
those
things.
pictures to Instagram off an iPhone made by a 4-year-old Chinese child in a factory. Like, let's be totally honest here. The reason I'm asking is largely because recently stories have been coming out about, for instance, feminist punk bands who are turning down massive major label offers. I'm sure you're familiar with the situation about the band Gloss. Are you aware of what's going on with Gloss?
No, I'm not aware of what's going on with Gloss, but I know the band. But
yeah, same
they're getting
kind of
big
area.
major label offers.
And they just broke up because of it. They turned down a $50,000 offer from Epitaph Records and then
How much?
broke up $50,000 and then broke
That's
up.
nothing.
So
sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry. I don't mean that like, oh, I'm super rich and I just have $50,000 in my pocket. I just mean like, in terms of a major label offer, that's not good enough.
Right.
That's not, I mean, I would turn it down just because it's not good enough. Right. It's not worth it to like compromise your identity. And like, aren't there all those horrible bans on Epitaph? Like,
because on one hand, it's like, I would love for anyone who makes hardcore music that I care about, especially feminist hardcore, to get $50,000 for any reason, because $50,000 sounds like a great time to me. Sign me up. On the other hand, I believe I, not knowing, never having worked with a major label myself, would never have considered the idea that $50,000 would be a lowball. It's also striking a balance between maintaining your punk ethics and recognizing that women have historically been underpaid.
Yeah.
In like every industry. So there's also a wage gap in music, I feel like.
Wait, you got to get back to the Gloss story. So did they break up because like one person wanted to do it and somebody else
didn't? They've published a
public
public letter that they ran on the Maximum Rock and Roll website about why they chose to break up. It's for a variety of reasons, but the story that a lot of like love Gloss, huge fan, think what they did, go for it. The part that music media writ large is focusing on is the number, the $50,000 number, and the connection to like a major label.
Wait, people are concentrating on the $50,000 number, like that's like a huge amount of money.
That it was some sort of punk.
It would have been a huge amount of money for me when I was in Bikini Kill, for sure. Right. But a major label offering a band $50,000 to me is a total slap in the face. Like a major label has tons of money. They should be able to offer a really amazing band like Gloss, like a lot more than that, because it costs a lot to make an album. It costs a lot to master it. And what the major label is going to want it to sound like is going to mean they're going to have to go into a different studio. They're going to have to work with a producer. All that money is just going to like go into producing their record. And then they're each going to end up with like $500. That's not cool.
And they're also trying to purchase them effectively on the strength of their identity, which is why a lot of people really like them, is their outward politics. And so it's almost as if labels want to sign bands based on the strength of their lyrics, which are about their personal politics as marginalized people, they should know that people from those groups are historically underpaid and offer them 8 times as much money, just as a gesture of intelligence. Like that would be a very easy way for any corporation to prove their awareness, would be to offer an exorbitant amount of money. Yeah. But instead, we're still seeing the undervalued labor of women, trans people, people of color, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's 2016.
And we're still wondering whether an overqualified woman can beat a fluorescent xenophobic Cheeto to become the president of Unilever and BP.
I just like that he was up last night tweeting at 3 a.m. because I was like, I don't even do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like somebody writes me some tweet and I'm like, that's stupid. And I just like delete it. And I'm like, I can't believe that this person is like, who could have the nuclear codes is like getting all bent out of shape of a Miss Universe.
Yeah.
Like who called him out and like, who gives a crap? Like, I mean, I give a crap about what he did to her, but the fact that it's like thou protest too much. Is that a Bible thing? Did I just
methinks the lady doth protest too much? That's Hamlet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unless it's Macbeth. And Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry I got that wrong.
I got to go back to school, Meredith.
She's totally listening. One of her guidance counselors, or I think it might have been my mom's a high school principal, and one of the teachers in her district, or someone in the district, went up to her desk one day after Perfect Pussy did some weird thing in like Europe, and leaned over her desk and was like, "Leslie, do you know Bikini Kill?" My mom was like, "Uh-huh."
She's like,
really flattered that
that's
one
sweet.
of her coworkers was like, "Your daughter, Bikini, like that's cool." Like, look.
I also heard about you, Meredith, that I do my homework.
I'm scared.
No, but I do follow bands that I like. That you went to a show and they had a really offensive flyer and you're like, I'm not going to play this show. And I think that brings up a really interesting topic. And like we wrote about tokenism and stuff like that on the record. And Bikini Kill had that all the time. Like I remember one particular one that was Asian women in very short skirts that showed their underwear wearing armbands that were very like Hitler-esque and had guns. And that was supposed to be like showing strong female power. And I was like, that looks like some weird guy's fascist sex dream. And, of course I wanted to walk away, but like when we were a band, I didn't feel like we had the power to do that. Like, you know, we were playing like small clubs with no...
Well, we didn't walk away. We played.
You did
I didn't
play.
see the flyer until I was at the venue, was what happened.
Oh, okay. So you did play.
We were in
I was
Dallas.
interested in that situation and how it played
We were
out.
on tour with Potty Mouth, which is an all-female band from Western Massachusetts, though they're now based out of LA. And we used to tour with them really extensively. They're great girls. And we got to the show in Dallas, and the flyer had a naked woman tied to a pole on it.
Ooh, that's nice.
I'm a pretty easygoing guy, you know, like for someone with like a hair trigger temper and a severe social bent towards misandry that makes me no fun at parties. I'm actually pretty cool when it comes to your run of the mill, like drive-by moroning.
Yeah.
But seeing that flyer,
That's
I
horrible.
wanted to go at someone's eyes.
Yeah, it makes
I was
me wanna do it.
furious. And I was on stage and I was just like, this is totally fucking inappropriate. There are people who are going to see perfect pussy and a naked woman tied to a pole and show up to your bar that you have a regular female clientele at regularly expecting this kind of material. I basically said, like, you're encouraging men to show up and harass me and the women in Potty Mouth, and that's unacceptable. The better part of this story is that the music editor of the biggest newspaper in Dallas, in reviewing the show, lambasted me for doing that by critiquing what I was wearing and saying that I didn't look punk because I was wearing shorts. It was black shorts. I had black denim shorts on and a striped t-shirt, and it was that I didn't look punk enough to be doing what I was doing. And this is an older, boring ass, like, MOR white dude, like, editor.
That is so...
Whatever guy. Well, what it did was, this was prior, or like maybe somewhere like early on in when I had started writing, and it did prompt a lot of people to ask me about it, which was good. But on the other hand, I am, if I can say this without sounding like a person of like real privilege to be able to ignore issues, I don't care about that shit. I don't care about guys making flyers for shows. I really don't. I care about Syrian children getting droned, and I care about Audrey and Daisy, the movie that I interviewed Tori Amos about last week, that's about teenage girls who kill themselves after their sexual assaults make it onto social media in their high school. Some dick swinger, America, born and raised, make a flyer with boobies on it. Like 2 years ago, yes, I would have absolutely blown a gasket and gone at the guy's eyes. But I don't want to say that if we ignore it, it'll just go away. But stupid shit like that, and the numbers game, and the appearance game, and all of that, it doesn't feel right for that to be the focus right now. You know, the world is way scarier.
Yeah.
To focus on the numbers, to focus on the money, to focus on the major versus minor, to focus on what band is premiering their song with Vogue, who's signing to what label, to do this, that, and the other thing. And it kind of feels akin to focusing on the election. It kind of feels akin to focusing on, like, Trump versus Hillary. I always have to think, like, when all this shit's going on TV and he's being mean and saying all this bad stuff to women, like, what are the people in power doing while the debates are going on? Which was, like, I think my only tweet during the debate. Like, I wonder what the people in power are doing while everyone in America is glued to this. And it feels that way with the music industry, too. I'm on stage at a 200 cap venue in the middle of East Cupcake screaming about a flyer that has boobs on it that I'm not okay with. And the industry, meanwhile, is protecting Dr. Luke instead of Kesha. It's signing secret contracts that ensure that there's a continued wage gap, and it's discouraging discussion about that. It's the industry encourages... I've railed about this forever now, but like a dedicated lack of intimacy between journalists and artists that I think is ineffective and leads to shoddy writing and a further divide between people that makes musicians scared of journalists and vice versa. I think all of these, while they are highly problematic, are also a diversion for the more toxic and insidious aspects of the industry that need to be stopped on that like macro capitalist level. That was a huge rant. I'm so sorry. But like I think about it now and I'm like, I still feel the rage of boobies, but I'm also just like, you know.
No, I was just interested in the concept of like, do you play when you show? Like if I didn't know the whole rundown. So thank you for letting me know. I just knew, I think we were actually on tour and were playing shows somewhere and someone just like told me about it. And I knew it had a lot of internet play and stuff. And I guess I'm interested in the idea of like, when you show up and get treated like that, it's like, when do you walk away? Like, when are you just like, fuck this is too much? And it's like, I'm always like, I don't care.
Yeah, I
like,
never walk away.
It's like, I care, but I'm like, if somebody's going to be a total douchebag to me, it's like, whatever, they're stupid and they're not, I feel sorry for them that like they have probably lose their friends because nobody cool will hang out with them. And you know, I'm going to go on and just keep doing my thing, you know, and I do find ways to insulate myself from, you know, bad situations by having like a tour manager, which is a real luxury, but something that insulates me from hearing some of the rougher stuff. That
in the absence of a tour manager, I've just become a giant asshole. So
yeah.
Just become a huge jerk.
I mean, it's been a long time for me that I've been doing this, and it just sort of like, I can't be the one anymore to have the conversations with the promoters about certain things, or, you know, tell them to turn off Under My Thumb by the Rolling Stones playing as our, you know, audience is filing in. I'm like, that's not appropriate. But it's like, I can't be the one to go down there, because you know how I'm going to get treated versus how our tour manager's a man, like how he's going to get treated. And I think that's fine, because I'm doing this so that I can stay healthy, like mentally healthy and physically healthy, and not get all stressed out about a bunch of stuff. And it's like, you know, it's like you have to pay the doctor bill. And, you know, he's my doctor.
So turn off your Under My Thumb fog machine of sexual assault creep. That was actually, it's so funny, because I'm just like, I really only came here today with one question, and everything that we've talked about has been leading up to it. And Elia knows, I told him on the train.
Oh God, I'm so scared.
Oh, get prepared, because you don't have a phone a friend. No, what I wanted to know, and it's all about this, it's about, what is the secret to staying in this world? How have you done it? Because you are, as you sit directly in front of me, I say, you are what I want to be when I grow up, if I grow up. It's this idea that you have, without compromising your ethics, remained in an industry that was caustic to you during Bikini Kill, supportive at other times, has produced criticism and praise in, at times, varying amounts, has iconized you, vilified you, championed you, gotten it right, gotten it wrong, made you the focus of a full-length documentary that was one of the most lauded of the year it was released. How have you managed to stay without totally losing it? Because all these things we're talking about are real, and they're everywhere, and they're constant. What did you do? What steps can I follow in?
Oh man, you know, I got a dog.
What kind?
Like a wire hair terrier dog from the pound, and before that, I had another dog named Freddie, but I can't talk about him because it's upsetting. But Bobby, who is still among the living, and she has freckle face. She's named after Roberta Peterson, the famous opera singer. We call her Bobby with the I. And she doesn't care about any of that stuff, and neither do I. Like when I come home and she's excited to see me, that's all I care about. And so I kind of like leave work at work in my head. Like I have a thing where I've gotten to a place where I'm like, this is a part of the gig, you know? And yeah, it's weird. I live with someone who's been doing this on a much larger scale than I have for as long as I have, for even a little longer. And he's never been protested by people he felt were members of his own community. And he's never been, you know, pulled off the stage by his ankles or had beer spit in his face, or, you know, just all these different things that happen, or the way that men will speak to me on the internet and tell me that my feminism is stupid, or I don't know what I'm talking about, or, you know, all the anti-abortion people that will harass me and people who threaten me. I'm just sort of like, well, that's just a part of the gig. And yeah, the sexism part sucks, but I also agree with you that there's more important things going on in the world. And it's like, if I get all hung up on just that, it just seems really stupid. But at the same time, I have to be like, look, am I internalizing these bad messages? And I have to talk back to them in my head. But I've also realized, like, you can't talk back to people who are total jerks. There's no reason. The only people that I speak back to when I have a conflict are people who I love.
I have someone in this room right now watching who I said that exact same thing to the other night. A male friend of mine who I had words with about the way that he referred to a professional woman that we're both friends with, only insofar as, like, her friendships with other people seemed to precede her professional input. And I said to him, like, don't do that. And his response was like, oh, I hope we're cool. And I was like, no, I love you so much. That's why I'm saying this. Because if you were just a run of the mill, like two brain cells to rub together and make Fire Joe six pack, I would not have fucked with you, like, period.
Right. It's a gift.
Yeah. And that's why I hate, and I'm sure you hate it too, when people say that you're a man-hating feminist or that you're a misandrist. I love men. so much. And
I don't
have so
always
many
love men. I am
the
kind
men
of a
in my
man
life
hater.
that
I don't
love.
give a shit. Like that whole thing of like, you're a man hater. I just started to be like, at Bikini Kill shows I used to sing like, I am a man hater and I don't care. Because it's like sometimes I do just feel like, oh my God, you know, Calgon, take me away. Like sometimes I feel that way. Like I think it'd be weird if like anybody who's oppressed or marginalized for whatever reason didn't hate the class of people who were a part of maybe not oppressing them directly, but benefiting from it. You know, sometimes I'm just like, well, if I was a dude, this wouldn't be happening to me. Or I think like, what would a man do? Which is really awful. I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of angry tweets about it.
The one that I get all the time is like, okay, I'm talking to a man. How do I get what I want? How do I manipulate what I'm about to say to make sure this man understands me and can relate to me and hear me? It's like, but if it's like,
but if it's somebody who's like not even worth it, I'm like, how do I get what I want? What do I say to get what I want? And I don't care. I'm just being honest. It's like, I'll lie. I'll like whatever just to get what I want. Because if it's somebody who's a total creepazoid and illogical and, you know, a total sexist douchebag, it's like, I'm just going to say what I need to say to that person.
Fair.
Even if it's like, you know, the verbal equivalent of like sucking the person's dick. It's like, that doesn't make me any lesser of a person. I don't feel gross about that. I did that so that my band could get on stage and have decent sound.
Me taking off my clothes in an interview got people to come to our shows. Literally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did an interview for the What's Underneath project for Style Like You, and it went viral completely by accident. And that was one of the
you're
first
naked on the
things.
internet?
I'm in my bra.
Oh, that's not naked.
Yeah. Well, it's naked for me. I dress like a Mormon sister wife, usually. Like I'm all high collar.
You need to be more Holly Hobby if you want to be a sister wife.
Yeah. I do have some gunny sacks.
Oh my God. I wore gunny sacks like my 7th grade
This is why
prom.
people called me a riot girl when I was like 13.
And you wore
I want to ask
gunny
you about
sacks?
that.
Nobody wore gunny sacks in Riot Girl. You were like some other,
you cut them up, and
like
you do
hybrid
the
raver Riot Girl.
Yeah, living on an army base in upstate New York, where they really understand the intensity of that term. And that term, you know, my boss now at MTV, who is, not only do I share a birthday with her, but I love her more than anything. And I've been reading her since she wrote for Punk Planet back in the day, is Jessica Hopper, who is incredible. First book of criticism by a living female rock critic. She's now one of the heads of MTV News. I work directly under her, and she is incredible. And she was curious about what's going on now with the term riot girl and what's going on and how it's being played in culture and how like one of the OGs feels about it, I think. And I'm also specifically interested in what I think of as the Etsy-fication of riot girl, where a lot of the imagery I'm seeing replicated in pastel for $13 as an enamel pin that largely all kind of are starting to look identical.
Yeah.
So in all these conversations about capitalism and context and small businesses and women supporting other women, how do you feel about that, the Etsy-fication of riot girl?
Well, the term riot girl is a separate question, and that's sort of like, I'm not really into that term anymore. Like I don't use it. I never really used it to identify myself, but like it was just a convenient thing that the media put on us, and then we're like, oh well, whatever. What are we going to do about it? You know, like we can either fight it or just use it to have like more people learn about it. And but when I am sitting in a doctor's office and I see Parenting Magazine and it says girl power on it, I find it really funny. And it's everywhere. Like girl power, even more than riot girl, is like absolutely, it's like probably in the dictionary or something now. And that was our fanzine that we put out in 1992. And I'm not going to be, this is not bragging, it's the reality, and I can prove it, that like we came up with that phrase. And now it sounds so normal that to say that you came up with it is like, well, who cares? It's such a normal, boring phrase.
No one's going to let you be written out of history for inventing that term, because they erase women's language that way too. They
it's just
ownership.
Every book about Riot Girl, it's always like they never mention that. And so every time I do a lecture, I always show the cover of that zine. And I'm like, this happened before the Spice Girls. Like, it's just my own personal thing that like Toby and I were like talking about it in her apartment. And I remember having this big conversation, and her and I like kind of mutually coming up with the title for the zine.
Toby interviewed me a few years ago, and I think she told me that.
And we were like, well, what's like the word that totally doesn't go with girl? You know what I mean? Like in the way that society is now. And And so I do find it humorous that now it's like Michelle Obama, girl power. You know what I mean? Like everybody's girl power now. And it's like, and I also just find it humorous, like the whole thing of like, you know, girls kick ass Band-Aids or, you know what I mean?
Girls'
Like,
pens,
you're
pens
a rock
for
star
women.
girl, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can't put a big like girl power Band-Aid over sexual assault and domestic violence. You can't, you know what I mean? It's like, it just...
Or racism or transphobia. Yeah.
It starts being just this thing that it doesn't mean anything. And so to me, it's become a bit meaningless. But I also know that other groups have been really inspired. And so I really look forward to the future, to what is now the fourth wave, where people don't just talk about intersectionality, but they practice it, which I feel was a big flaw of Riot Grrrl and my particular participation even. And the thing about the Etsy-fication, I wrote a song on just to get back to me.
Just to take it back to you.
I just really need to take it back to
Let's
me
talk
now,
about
Meredith.
you.
I really need a me moment. I think we're about to wrap up, but I'm giving myself a me moment right now. So
I
you
did
can't
want to
take
say
this from
though,
me.
my iPhone autocorrects it to Riot Grill,
Mine does too.
which I decided you just can't cook hot dogs on it.
Well, see, I'm so old school that I can just say like BK, RG, and like all my friends know what I'm talking about.
Wait, is that a secret code? What does that mean? I want to know.
BK is Bikini Kill and RG is Riot Grrrl. So it's like, I was like, oh, it's another RG thing. But like, also FF, famous feminist. Welcome to the club, Meredith.
Oh my God.
Guess what you're going to get?
There's an FF on Twitter that's like a follow Friday, and I'm going to start doing FF famous feminists. and
famous
have them
feminist. I'm
follow
telling you,
people.
it's really worth it because
That's amazing.
I really appreciate you showing your ambition. I want to say this more than I want to say the thing about crocheting.
Let's get back to you.
Well, I do want to get back to you. I do. Super quick, I'm just going to say I wrote a song called You Make Me Want to Crochet. And it was about how people being so effed up. Like, I thought everybody in the punk scene was going to be like, oh, these feminists are like making this music. This is awesome. Hugs all around. But like, it was exactly the opposite situation. And then I was just like, you know, then because I showed any ambition of being in a band and I lived in a small town as you did, you know, people would come up to me, male and female, like in the grocery store and just be like, you think you're so cool. You know what I mean? I was like, man, like on stage, I'm getting guys, you know, telling me to shut the fuck up. I'm having people like, you know, physically assault me, all this kind of stuff.
I don't think I'm cool. I'm terrified.
Right. Yeah. And then it's like you're getting it from all sides. And it's like, you make me want to crochet. And then the whole thing of like women reclaiming crafting came into vogue. And I was like, whoa, I don't know how to understand this. And I went to a lecture at, a panel discussion. It sounds like I'm just like this person who wanders around town, like going to panel discussions.
Oh, you mean like
but
a cool academic that's also in like 4 punk bands?
Right.
Do go on.
So I went
Keep
to this
talking.
one and it was all about like women doing art projects involving knitting. And there was a woman who had set up a thing where people could knit. She was knitting mittens and gloves that had the death count of both foreign and domestic people, human beings who'd been killed in warfare. And I thought that was a really amazing project. And there were several projects that I learned about that day that like were really, really amazing that were using like craft. And I totally got the thing of like, this was something that was always like diminished as an art because mostly women practiced it. But the Etsy thing is really complicated because it gets into what we were just talking about like you go girl and stuff like that. And it's like if people put out t-shirts with my face on it and it says like you go girl, like it's just embarrassing to me because or like, you know, girls kick ass or
Girl, anything really bugs me.
or just like I don't know. It's just
The more infuriating thing about it to me sometimes, honestly, and I forgot until just now that I actually just read back over an interview that I did like a year ago that just came out where I said this exact thing, so it's fresh in my mind, is that I have zero time for anyone who wants to corner art, craft, cooking, cleaning, fashion, makeup, any of this as women's work, because that is deceptive. I think that's a false flag because these are things that are only described as women's work until you get to a level where people are being paid and then their industry is dominated by men. Most of the major fashion designers in the world are men. Most of the chefs in the world are men.
Well, Mike Kelly,
famous makeup artists.
Mike Kelly got famous off crocheting.
Exactly. And I was right there at the Mike Kelly retrospective at PS1 watching Blowfly rap about boners in the bubble with a million other people. So like, this is only women. This is only the women's diaspora insofar as other people have led us to believe that. I thus am willing to admit that I learned punk from men for the most part. But prior to being in this band, just another reason why people used to say that I wasn't punk is because I was a fucking seamstress. I made wedding dresses.
Right.
I crafted professionally. But the biggest fashion designers in the world are still Karl Lagerfeld and Hedy Slimane and Ralph Simons and like even Kanye, male designers. So it's the Etsy thing is, I don't like, what is it? Shout my tropes, but the fist and the woman symbol and things that are lovely, but just as outdated as the application wild and loose of the personal is political. Like, yeah, no shit. It's always been that way. But like that phrase pertains to a specific time, as do those images. But I also love to see young girls making money. Yeah. Like you said, do what you can. Lie if you have to. Stack the paper. Get the money. So I don't really know how to feel about it.
No, I think it's like it works for some people and it's cool. Like people are at their houses, and also, you know, we were talking before about invisible disabilities, and it's like there's some people who can't go to a job, but they can like make stuff at home. It's like I don't have like this big, huge political problem with it. I just have a problem with the fact that I guess it was like 10 years ago it happened that where everything became about craft and crafting. And I actually had a publicist say to me, you know, the big thing now is, you know, like if you could like sew some stuff or like make a scarf and then sell it for like $1,000 or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a musician. I'm not going to learn how to like make scarves. Like that's totally ridiculous. Like, what am I supposed to come and like wipe people's asses at their houses and they can give me $2,000 then? Like I just.
With some hand crocheted toilet paper.
Right.
Yeah.
But before we go, I did want to just say, I really appreciate the fact that, you know, you're in Perfect Pussy, you're working with other people, and you're also working in a more mainstream capacity at MTV. And I'm sure you've gotten tons of shit for it. And I just want to say that, you know, ambition is like, I am bitchin'. And don't like let people take that away from you. You know what I mean? It's like, if you have an ambition to do something, like do it. Don't let people tell you you're not punk because you're on MTV or like whatever. I mean, I took tons of shit for like various decisions I've made. And the thing is that you can be such a role model by saying like, well, I want to try it all. I'm not afraid and I want to try all different things. Absolutely. Maybe it won't work out. But guess what? I'm not going to be like staying in this one position that you have to admit, underground punk feminist rock is marginalized like in this tiny little niche. And it's like, if you for the good of all of us, or like, you know, bringing me on your show and like, you know, bringing these amazing women out to talk and asking us intelligent questions, it's like, that's an awesome thing that I think you're doing. And I just want you to know I'm in your corner, that when you get the horrible emails and tweets and shit like that, that like, it's just a part of the game. It's just a part of the game.
I want to read you this great one I got this morning. I can't remember it verbatim, but it was because
I wrote it.
I made a joke about Bon Iver, and someone was like, it's easier to tell that Bon Iver is a unique band. I'm going to get it wrong, but it's like literally.
Well, you're paraphrasing.
Like, you look like a plum and a tampon was like the comment that I received.
You look like a plum and a tampon?
A plum and a tampon. Did you find it?
That is like the best t-shirt ever.
Oh, it's going to be someone that tweeted at me, but it's
Speaking of
great.
Etsy, somebody has to make the plum with the tampon.
Yeah. That would really, really be something. I'm all for public menstrual art. I've done that one.
I almost wore my Hysterics t-shirt today that has like
had that shirt.
The tampons on, but I was afraid you were going to ask me for like specific questions about that band, and like I love them, but I don't know
with the woman who sang in that band.
I don't know that much about them, and I was like, what if she's like, what's your favorite song off of blah 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 blah? And I'm like, I don't know.
My first band played with Hysterics. The only time I've ever played in Olympia in my life was there with Hysterics, and they took us to karaoke afterwards. I'd never done karaoke, and I Saw the Sign by Ace of Base.
I used to be the karaoke host in Olympia.
Oh, and I walked around going, Olympia, dun, 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 and that was me just doing like air drums the whole time. And I loved it, and I thought of you And that was 7 years ago. And without saying yes to a bunch of shit that terrified me, I wouldn't be here sitting where I am now, being validated to fucking hell and back by you. So thank you. And
You're
if anyone's
welcome.
listening, just remember that if anyone ever gives you shit for doing stuff with a major label or a mainstream publication or anything that makes you happy, that so long as you don't listen to them and continue to grow, you too may eventually be locked in a tiny glass box in a very fancy building with one of your heroes talking about how those people matter about 2 pubes worth in the grand scheme of things.
2 pubes is a lot.
That's fucking
pubes.
Cool. Yeah, if I found 2 pubes in anything, actually, that would make a substantial impact on my day, maybe. Oh, well, that's a fantastic note to end
Okay,
on.
a plum, a tampon, and 2 pubes.
A plum, a tampon, and 2 pubes.
That's my new art that I'm going to go home and make. I can do that really
Because you're an
easily.
artist, right?
Well, I do a lot of photography and stuff like that, but I pretty much just sort of keep it separate. I never answered the how I fit into visual art thing because, like,
I was really hoping...
I'm a musician so much more. Like, everybody knows me for that. And so, like, let's get real. Like, who gives a shit about what art I make?
I was really hoping that before we wrapped up, I'd get to ask you what it feels like to be a woman in music, you know? Like, just what's it like to be a girl in a band? Can you want
Can you
tell me in like 3 seconds before we move on to another question?
Everybody always asks me about like being a woman in a band, and they never ask me about like being white and middle class and being in a band.
True. Very true.
You know, and it's also like, why aren't they asking guys, like, what does it feel like to be a man in a band? And what's your take on feminism? And what do you think of Beyonce saying she's a feminist? Like, go ask everybody that shit, or don't even come to my face. Like, get out of my face, you know? Anyway, sorry.
So the general advice today from Kathleen Hanna is get you a Bobby. Get you a Bobby.
Get a
for
dog.
Sure. Lie if you need to make your money. And don't listen to fucking any motherfucker.
Yeah.
That like tells you shit. This is amazing.
Have an outside life outside of your career.
Cool.
Be willing to call it a
boyfriend,
career.
Cool dog, many bands.
Yeah, and just have people who like don't want to talk to you about work all the time.
Meredith Graves, Kathleen Hanna, thank you so much for joining us here on the Talkhouse Music Podcast. This is Elia Einhorn, your host. We are broadcasting from 101 Green Street, the SONOS store here in Soho, New York City. Meredith and Kathleen are going to hang out and take a couple questions from the viewing audience. We got some from Twitter and some from Facebook, so thanks for sending in your questions. Quick shout out to everyone at Cornerstone and SONOS for helping to coordinate this, to Adam, Bryson, Brian, and Jesse, and everyone else involved.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. This is the kind of thing I love being able to set up, because it's the kind of thing I wish happened and would want to come to. So Meredith and Kathleen, thank you again, just for me personally, for coming together for this. Okay, we have a few questions.
Oh my God. Is it going to involve like plums and...
There actually is one
a
about...
plum pubic hair
Do you want
question?
me to read you that one
Yes,
first?
take that one first.
Okay,
Let's
somebody
just do
sent...
it.
Let's see.
Am I going to have to flush my face down the toilet after I read this?
Somebody just tweeted... Oh, no, this is the tweet from earlier, I think.
Oh, you found it.
Lumberjack punk might be the dumbest term I ever heard. Too bad no one could tell you apart from a plum posing as a tampon.
A plum.
Now, this is from shit Matt hates. And I would like to say, I
shout
hate
out that
Matt.
person's
Fuck off.
username.
I gotta say, it's actually kind of funny. I mean,
yeah, it's great.
I know if it hurts your feelings,
No, I love it.
totally. But it's like
I love it.
sometimes I'm just like, when people write really nasty stuff to me, that's like, you know, like die, bitch, die, or whatever. It's like totally boring, like run of the mill. But when people get really creative, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, could you at least like do that in a better font?
True.
You know what I mean?
I have some
Like
trolls that I've like become very attached to, because they would just say some stupid stuff, and then I would look and see that they had like memes all over their page, and they're obviously like on B and whatever, and just like stealing all their pictures off 4chan. But like, I took to them, and now like I'll talk back to them, and like they're eggs. I don't know who they are, but it's these same 2 trolls all the time. Might be the same guy. And if one of them says something inappropriate, I have been like, hey, I usually like you. I value you as a troll, but today's not the day. And he'll just stop. And I'm like, okay. So I have 2 trolls that I'm like nurturing, like they're little sea monkeys.
like
I love my
the
trolls.
Meredith Graves petri dish.
I don't fight with people on the internet.
I want to see the Meredith
nurture
Graves
my
petri
trolls.
dish.
I want to give a quick shout out. We've got a couple of the ladies from Savages here, and they're nodding along to the
awesome.
troll talk.
Hey.
So, ladies, nice to see you again. It's been since Primavera, but that we bumped into each other. But I'm sorry to hear that you're part of this troll issue.
Love my trolls. Shout my trolls.
Meredith, you have long-term relationships. You have LTRs with your trolls.
I do.
Here's a question. Just like there's boundaries with social media, this one is for Kathleen. we got a question. What is it like to be married to a musician? What kind of boundaries do you have for discussions about music?
We don't really have boundaries. I mean, we both grew up in messed up dysfunctional families. Boundaries, what's that? No, just like we like all the same stuff. I mean, I'm kind of a dick in that, like, when I would date somebody or just like have sex with them and then wake up the next morning and kind of be like, am I into this person? Do I want to continue this? I would look at their record collection and I would immediately know. I mean, if it was like Red Hot Chili Peppers was in there, I was gone. And so, I mean, he and I have really, really similar taste in music. He turns me on to great music. I've turned him on to some great music. You know, and we discuss stuff about like arrangements, but we both really love bubblegum pop, the Archies, like, you know, Castanet Cats. Yeah. Like, and so we don't really have any boundaries about musical discussions. It's more like there's been times where we've tried to work together, that it's really hard because we're both very stubborn and we both hear things in our head how we want them to be, and then we're trying to go about hearing them the way, like mixing a song the way that I hear it versus mixing it the way he hears it, because I'm all about the treble and he's all about the bass.
So no Kathleen Hanna ad rock collabos coming up?
No, I mean, we do stuff for charity and stuff, or like we sing at people's weddings, or, you know, I mean, our friends, we're not like, oh, that would be really funny.
Bar mitzvahs?
Check out our website, Adam and Kathleen. We should do that.
Only gay weddings.
We did really want,
only trolls
only
weddings.
We actually have only sung at a gay
weddings.
wedding.
We have a question for Meredith. What are you listening to now? What bands do you feel are important in the moment?
Fuck. A lot. Actually, I have been starting to think about my album of the year, song of the year list, and I realized that writ large, every release that came out this year that I care about is a rap record, which will surprise absolutely no one that knows me, as it is my living
You love rap.
goal to be the vetted small white kitten of rap journalism. I love the Kanye record Life of Pablo, Kendrick's Untitled Unmastered, Death Grips Bottomless Pit. I've got Clipping's new record, the new Bus Driver record that came out last year, Thumbs, is incredible. We've got, who else? There's going to be
I know you love your buddy Chance the Rapper.
I do love Chance. I hope I get to see him this weekend. I'm going to the Meadows Festival to do some Facebook Live interviews with MTV. I'm going to get to talk to Kamasi Washington this weekend, who also put out that brilliant double album. I got to see him with his father during CMJ. Yeah, most of what I'm listening to right now is, again, totally unsurprisingly, it's rap music. I had to admit to my weed dealer recently that I'm not punk anymore. When he was wearing a Carbona's shirt. And
Your weed dealer's John Joseph from Chromegs, right?
I wish. John Joseph, I actually met, we didn't remember that we had met at Vice 20 a couple years ago, but I had also met John Joseph, who is my like hardcore like pinup icon of a vocalist. Because Age of Coral was the greatest album ever written, and I met him that night. It was very, very odd. But yeah, under anything I'm listening to this year, as much as I am listening to Kanye and the Clipping record, I think really. The Clipping record, the Chance record, Death Grips, of course. And other than that, yeah.
Those are a
punk.
fair
I'm
few
trying to
records
think of
for people to check out.
Punk stuff that I liked. But no, punk is dead. It's only rap music from now on.
Rappers are the new rock stars.
Well, some people who turn out to be famous rappers with decades-long careers started in hardcore bands, and sometimes they were the same band, as we're coming up on like a major Beasties anniversary too. So seems situationally valid.
Are we?
I got an email yesterday asking if I cared about the Beastie Boys, if I wanted to say something about their songs, and I'm like, hell yeah.
Look at this
Like
look
Bad
of
Brains.
I'm like, I have
consternation
no
on
clue.
Kathleen's
I have
face.
no clue.
I'll forward you the email.
I have no clue.
Don't tell her hubby.
I know.
Oh, and the other thing I'm listening to is this amazing song with this terrible vocalist by a great God Mode band called House of Feelings. It was just out the other day. No, I want to shout all my friends at God Mode. There's a new Yvette record coming out very soon. Yvette is the best band in Brooklyn, and anyone that disagrees is cordially invited to fight me. Everything on God Mode is great. The new House of Feelings record is sick. It's basically freestyle. Every DJ should be playing it from Funk Flex on down. Yeah, literally anything on God Mode, especially House of Feelings. And yeah, I'm on the new song, but like it's not that. It's everyone else, and it's all of the work they do at God Mode. God Mode is the most important label currently active, I think, in a lot of ways.
Another question we have, this one for Kathleen. You talked about recording the new Tigre record, which is really exciting. Are you guys going to be touring after this?
No, we're not recording a record. We're just recording a track.
Just a track?
It's just a track.
Is it for something in particular?
Well, yes, it is,
Said
but I'm
she
not going to
couldn't
say
tell
what it is.
OMG.
It could be for Halloween. It could be a Monster Mash style song.
Do they even know it's Halloween?
Yeah. Oh my God, that song. Oh, I could talk about that one for hours. It's like...
And we have... no, okay.
No.
Last question, or maybe one or two more. Here's one. Kathleen, this is from Facebook Live. Have you been supported well throughout your illness, and how can your fans support you more?
Oh, that's so sweet.
Whoever wrote that's amazing.
I have been supported,
Sarah Duncan. Thank you for that
Thank
question.
you, Sarah. That's very sweet of you. I have been, and it's been amazing to go on the road, and when I'm able to go out in the audience and meet people afterwards, like there's a lot of people who, before you have an invisible illness, you don't really realize like all of the things that it entails and the humiliation it can entail, and like there's just so much stuff. And meeting other people with invisible illnesses who say, oh, the thing that you said tonight on stage about it really resonated with me, or I'm a caregiver of somebody with an invisible illness and thank you for bringing it up. And that's been actually something that has been really supported me in my healing, is hearing that talking about it has helped other people. And I really did feel like I was hiding it for a long time. It can make you unemployable. It can make it like people don't want to book your band if you're going to cancel. And we had to cancel a whole European tour due to illness. And I don't remember what the question was. Oh, people supporting me. I think just for fans, the way you can support me is by like, do the stuff that you want to do and make great stuff in the world to entertain me and to make me happy. It's like, I don't really need well wishes and stuff. Like, it's nice to get them. I definitely don't need men sending me like links to things that talk about how chronic Lyme disease doesn't exist. And isn't it funny that more women have it than men? What does that mean?
Oh, no.
That kind of stuff I don't need.
You got a diagnosis of suck my dick, my
Yeah.
dude.
No, you got a diagnosis of you've been blocked.
You got Zachary's disease, as my mom would say. Your ass looks exactly like your face.
I love your mom.
I can't wait to tell her that you said that.
She's a principal.
Yeah,
It just made me start feeling like I was going to wet my pants
When I was,
you said
like,
that, 'cause I was
12.
like, I'm going to go to the principal.
No, it's so
I
cool.
spent so much time there.
So did I, and she was a teacher when I was in high school, and so every time I got suspended for skipping to listen to the Julie Ruin tape in my best friend's car, they'd bring me to her classroom instead
You
of
were
suspension.
smoking pot, weren't you, Meredith?
No, I wasn't. I
This was
I was
before
smoking
John Joseph.
cheap cigarettes from the reservation. I was
Okay.
and listening to your tape. And she went from being a substitute ESL teacher to the principal of my high school in just about a decade. My
Wow.
mom is up there with you and, Tracy Eamon on the list of like badass, like very powerful role models for me as a teenager. So she is cool, and I can't wait to tell her you said that. It'll make her
Oh, the
really
Tracy Eamon thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We have one last question, this one from Twitter. Take this as you would, sort of go with this where you'd like to, Meredith and Kathleen. But they wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the election, the current state of the election.
You first.
I was going to say nose goes, but then you got me. How do I feel about the election? On one hand, I feel like it is transparently obvious that what's going on right here. Okay, wow. I love to start 8 sentences and not finish any of them. The thing about the election is that for the first time, we are seeing the gender divide most strongly displayed on the largest stage internationally as we choose the next leader of the free world from, as I said previously, possibly the most overqualified person who has ever applied for the job, and a xenophobic reality TV star who doesn't believe in global warming. Like, this is the gender divide when these two people are actually viewed as being each other's competition. That is really what's going on. And what's going on interstitially between people in the United States is that we are seeing which ones of our friends are still considering this to be a competition and other people's grasp of politics. That's one side of the coin. The other side is that for me personally, this entire process, this election specifically, has validated my lack of belief in a two-party democratic system that is viable and transparent. The fact that this election is what it is and it's being portrayed the way that it is in the media, on stage, even my role in it as a news correspondent who occasionally covers politics for the MTV site. My view is the fact that this is allowed to happen at all, that an unqualified reality TV star with no experience in politics is being put up against an advisor to the Obama administration, the fucking Secretary of State, is up, a woman who is in her 60s with 4 decades of political experience is being pitted against the man who owns the Miss Universe pageant. And I don't mean to say this as an example of rampant sexism. I mean this as an example by which to say, please consider whether or not you actually believe in the validity of the democratic United States system and the Electoral College. This is a farce. And if this election has made me believe anything, it's that the country is run by Apple, BP, and Unilever, and that the people in power are too busy enjoying themselves to watch the debates that are meant to distract the rest of us. This election cycle has validated for me entirely the fact that transparency in government is a non-starter. And I realize that is a harsh toke, my guy, but really, I've never felt so attached to the term theater of politics. I'll say that.
I'd very much like to invite you to take that microphone off the stand and drop it.
I did that. The last time I did that, the microphone broke. And I don't remember where I was.
I like these.
But it wasn't socially appropriate. I'm great at parties. Republican Party, Democratic Party. I love them all.
Libertarians.
Gary Johnson, Cannabis Sativa Incorporated. But don't vote for that guy. He's fucking anti-Roe v. Wade.
Oh, the guy who was what's Aleppo?
Gary Johnson, the Libertarian third-party presidential nominee, left his post as the CEO of a company he started that was actually registered as Cannabis Sativa Incorporated to run on a platform of believing abortion is a states' rights issue.
Did you see he just called himself out for having, quote unquote, another Aleppo moment?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. This is getting serious.
They asked him about who was a world leader that he looked up to, and he couldn't name anybody. And
he said
the former president of Mexico, and then the guy next to him
Fox.
had
So
to
from
explain.
years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty banana.
Rodrigo Duterte.
But the election, I agree with so much of what Meredith says. I think it's great that Bernie Sanders opened the door to us even talking about socialism. I think that that's a chip in the armor and a good thing ultimately, and it did bring Hillary more to the left. But I think that in this election, it's just so important that Trump does not become our president. Things could really, really, really go bad. It terrifies me. I feel like my body has been in knots for months and months and months. And she's made mistakes. Hillary's made mistakes, of course, we all have, and she's learned from them, and she's changed her opinion on different bills and different, things that were going down the pike in Washington. And she said, I like this, and then read the actual thing and said, I actually don't agree with this. And sometimes, people have to vote for stuff that they don't agree with to get stuff like healthcare for children passed. It's a really complicated thing. I agree. I don't think the two-party system is working anymore. But Trump said that Mexicans are rapists. I don't know if he used the word Hispanic or Mexican. I can't remember now, but
Mexican. He did say, I love Hispanics, with a picture of a Trump Tower taco bowl.
I also just want to remind people that he said at a thing after being called racist, he said, where's my African American? Oh, there's my African American. Seriously, that's all I need. I'm done.
He called Kim Kardashian fat the other day, which
he's just
offended me so personally.
It's super out of control, and it's on so many levels. And this person is so inexperienced, and he is. If he got into be the president, he's just going to sway the laws so that his companies will make more money. And he's already done tons of illegal stuff. He won't show his tax returns. Blah 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 blah. We need to vote for Hillary. She's more experienced than anybody has ever been to be president. And even if you don't agree with every little teeny tiny thing she said, I think it's super bizarre that people are like, she's a liar. I don't believe her. She's unbelievable. And then you look at Trump just stand there and lie and lie and lie and lie. And people are fact checking him now in the moment because the media is realizing they have to play catch up and not stand there and like put their camera on a podium that he's not even at, waiting for a half an hour for him to get up and do a commercial for his hotel under the guise of praising military people who have served in the military, which is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life, on so many levels, using people who have fought for our country in this way to be pawns for him to talk about how beautiful the ballroom at his Washington, D.C. hotel is, which I just now advertised. But
you have to wonder how many Department of Defense cocktail functions they've hosted in the Trump Soho.
It's
the same DOD that finances the militarization of small-town American police forces is part and parcel, renting wedding blocks at the Trump Towers.
But also, dude doesn't follow the law.
Well,
like,
dude.
even the Trump Soho Tower, he built it he built extra, he didn't have the air rights to build like a couple extra flights, or what do you call it?
Could he be compensating for something, do you think?
No, but
he would say that makes him smart.
He would say it makes him smart, but basically what happened, well, he's had tons of people die on his construction sites that never gets brought up. He built a building on a slave burial site. He also does stuff like, I'm just going to put extra what do you call it? Floors on my building. And then I have enough money that I can just pay the fine. And it's like, other people can't do that. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't just be like, well, I'm just going to park my car wherever the fuck I want because I have so much money. I'll just pay the fine. I'll just pay the fine.
My boyfriend actually does that.
Well, I mean, I used to do it too, even though I didn't have the money, because I was like, it's just paper. I was like, it's just paper. What are they going to do? But you know what I mean? It's like the whole idea of like, well, I'm just going to break the law and then I'll just pay because it's white collar crime. I'll just pay.
And the trickle down of that is I will rape someone and serve 3 months of a 6-month sentence.
Don't even get me started.
Build your tower higher. Like, build your tower higher, you freakish Cheeto raper guy.
Wait, you should do spoken word.
The difference.
You should totally do a spoken word record. It'd be so
all right,
funny.
So if Trump gets elected, I will quit punk further.
No, just go in a studio one day and drink a bunch of coffee or tea or whatever is your passion. And just like go.
Man.
I would
if only someone would give me a
that
job
shit. I would totally
download
that shit. Where you just start mixing up like Trump with Brock Turner with like, it's awesome. Oh my God.
So if I can go back to my office after this and convince my
office?
politics editor. Yeah, it's like 5 blocks away. You got to come hang out.
I want an office.
Yeah. Come be on the podcast with me and we can talk about this. I think exactly
I'm going to hang out in your office, Meredith.
Come hang out. I just have
in the corner. I'm going to be like the Hobbit guide. I'm like, Miss Pretty.
I'm in a big newsroom and I have all these nice coworkers that are super, super smart. And what I've learned from them and what you're validating in everything you just said is that the real issue with this election is that if Hillary Clinton gets elected, we will have Hillary Clinton as president and we will have a Clinton administration. If Donald Trump gets elected, he's a sock puppet and the game is going to be seeing who's got their hand up his ass because that's going to be who's in the White House.
Welcome back, Dick Cheney.
Yeah, given his business relationships, that's what terrifies me is that the Trump presidency is not Trump the person, it's Trump the capitalist entity. And whoever he is invested in, including the companies that hired undocumented Mexican immigrants to build these illegal buildings and die on his sites. The people who are putting a gun to your head with one hand and giving you a hand job with the other, that's who's going to be president if Trump gets elected. Personally, I will take one overqualified woman over the powers that be. Yeah, that's it.
People need to vote. Please sign up to vote if you're listening.
And more than anything, vote locally, because
the down ticket's super important.
The truest parallel to the Trump presidency is the election of Robert Morrow as the GOP head of West Texas. Robert Morrow, you may know as the guy whose entire Twitter account is dedicated to rating anime boobs. He's written a number of books about how the Clinton administration is a cover for the Clintons' personal gay child sex scandal. And this is the head of the Texas GOP. This is my favorite living politician. He is the greatest living example of modern politics. No. I am in awe of this man. His name is Robert Morrow.
I thought I was the only person who had boob animes all over my Twitter.
Yo, when Donald Trump slipped up in a speech a couple months ago and said titties instead of cities, Robert Morrow's Twitter was lit. It was the function. I was there for it. I think that he is the greatest example of how the American electoral system works. He was only voted to be literally the head of the Texas GOP when Ted Cruz almost won the nomination. I know I'm tapping myself in the head a lot and getting really emotional about
For
this.
For those of you not watching,
this is what I'm saying. This is the spoken word record. Don't
he
use
was
it all now.
elected because he was the first name on the ballot and no one knew who they were voting for. And they got a guy that tweets about anime boobs and wears a jester hat to meetings. And they said, okay, we're going to go in and lobby to have all of his power and all of his budget taken away. And Robert Morrow, the head of the Texas GOP in the district that includes Austin, said, fine, take away all my money and power. I only ran to get a bigger platform to talk about the Clintons' gay child sex scandal. Here's my jester hat. Fuck you. That is how democracy works in America today. If you wouldn't have Robert Morrow as a president, don't vote for Trump.
If anybody hears this, please, and like somehow manages to record it, which I guess you're not supposed to do, but like, someone just needs to put a beat behind everything Meredith just said and just
do you know a guy?
Call it a day.
Are you married to a guy that might be able to help me with that?
Yeah.
I'm in the Beastie Boys now. I'm in like
I have
all
a
these
little
bands.
home studio. You could come over. I can make beats. I mean, it's not like
let's
rocket
re-record.
science,
Let's re-record because I know the rap verse from that song pretty much from memory. I think
I seriously have a really nice mic set up right now. I could just lay down a beat. And
How
I'll just
many
ask
girls
you some
stay
political.
awake all night? Too scared to sleep and too scared.
Well, don't
to
do
fight
that one
back
because
in
it was
the
already
night.
done by the
Some
feminist legend icon over
feminist
here,
legend icon
who has
This
boob
bitch.
animes on her Twitter.
I love boob animes.
But yeah, we really need to just put a beat down, and I'm just going to ask you some political questions, and you just go the fuck off.
I'm 100% for this.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Collab.
Collab. Hannah
Collab.
X Graves. Collab. To benefit the Texas GOP.
You heard it here on the Talkhouse Music Podcast. Kathleen Hanna, Meredith Graves, collabo. We have Tigre coming around soon. Listen, these records that you see, for those watching, the Perfect Pussy record, the new Julie Ruin record, those are going to be staying here at the SONOS store, 101 Green Street, as part of the permanent collection here in listening booth number 7 downstairs. I'll say permanent collection until a big Riot Grrrl fan comes and steals both records. But thank you so much to SONOS for hosting us. Again, this is Elia for the Talkhouse, signing off.
I can make it 9 to 5.